Chicken Little is out in force. The sky is falling. Dogs and cats living together. Mass hysteria. Thankfully, you have reached a voice of reason in the global economic panic. A cop does his job at a routine traffic stop and pays with his life. The reality of why cops are so ready to properly retaliate every second of every day. Hillary Clinton won't say it out loud, but you better believe she and her acolytes are worried about a possible Biden-Warren ticket. Telling it like it is takes a slap at ridiculous political correctness. And we begin our week-long exclusive one-on-one interview with the Republican presidential candidate Ted Cruz. Kick back. We're in control. I'm Ed Berliner. This is The Hardline for Monday, August 24th, 2015.
Very clear that the Chinese authorities have not been able to successfully rebalance their economy. Part of the strategy in doing that was to effectively pump up or create a stock market boom in order to create a wealth effect. That has failed, and they failed to arrest the downturn.
The Chinese economy is crashing. Wall Street is going into DEFCON 4 mode, planning on how to stop the bleeding. There is panic everywhere. Except right here, where the voices of monetary reason always reside. Stop stuffing everything under the mattress. Listen closely. He is our first call on the hardline every time it's about the Benjamins. Veteran economist, Wall Street veteran, and author of The American Dream Under Fire, Steve Beeman. Joined by another veteran master economist, broker, dealer, author, and a former economic advisor to the Ron Paul presidential bid in 2008, Peter Schiff. Gentlemen, I thank you both for being here. All right, we're both going to do this. First of all, big breath, everybody. It's all over. Let's start right from there. Steve, let me start with you. This is a catastrophe, a disaster. America's falling. China's falling. The world is... Okay, stop. A little honesty here, Steve. 3.5% is an awful lot to fall, but isn't it fair to say that you could almost see this coming?
Well, I think we can all say it's a bad day, but yes. And Ed, I learned flying airplanes, you never panic. You use your logical senses to wade through these things. This is not fun. We all saw the Chinese economy slowing down. I think we were a little surprised by the Chinese government's manipulation of the currency, followed by the Vietnamese doing the same thing. But generally speaking, this is not an unprecedented event. Down 3.5%. We saw it in 2011, and calm made the day and the markets recovered. So I think it has not come to an end. The world is not ending as we know it.
All right. Thank goodness for that. Peter, now just working right off what Steve said here, is it not fair to say that, and we've talked about this on this show time and time again, there is a hubris and an arrogance that has been evident with the Chinese now for some time when it comes to their stock market, and you knew that the bottom was going to fall out because they couldn't keep that ego going forever. Is that all fair to say?
Actually, no. I mean, I think the media wants to blame this on China. First of all, the Chinese stock market is about unchanged on the year, slightly down. The U.S. market is down a lot more in 2015 than the Chinese market. The Chinese market did spike up earlier in the year, but it simply reversed that spike. And the Chinese market is considerably lower than it was back in 2007, whereas the U.S. market has had a huge ride on, it's been surfing the quantitative easing 0% interest rate wave. And, you just referenced 2011. The Federal Reserve saved the market in 2011 with a round of quantitative easing. They've been threatening to take away the punch bowl. Everybody's been expecting a rate hike. That's what's really rolling the markets all around the world. It's not about China. It's about the Fed threatening to end the party by raising interest rates after having them at zero for almost 7 years. It's been almost 10 years since the Fed raised interest rates. That is the problem. And people have thought that the Fed could raise interest rates and the market wouldn't be affected. That was wrong. This market has been supported by the Fed. The Fed's the only game in town. They had two supports. They had quantitative easing, and they had 0% interest rates. They already removed one. They're threatening to remove the other. If they do that, there's nothing but air beneath the market, and this market is going a lot lower unless the Fed rescues it the way it did before. Not only does it have to take interest rate hikes off the table, but it's got to resurrect the QE program, and it's got to launch QE4. Now, that's not what I'm advising, but that's what they're going to do.
All right, Steve, let's first of all get to the Fed issue here. Do you believe as well that it's the Fed who will come in and save this, or who needs to come in and save this?
Well, I think it is accurate, as Peter says, that the Fed is what drove this market up. When there's nowhere else for money to go, it runs into the marketplace. I do think the Fed is still considering small increases, 25 basis point type numbers that are very, very small. But to Peter's point, that makes the market skittish, and I think it plays into this China thing. I don't think it's one or the other. I think it's a combination of many, many things that have happened. But I do think going forward, the Fed will be looking seriously at now whether or not they can raise rates because of this currency war that's going on. And that just leads to some questions about a QE4, which I'm not sure they can do it if they wanted to.
So, Peter, is China indeed... Oh, I'm sorry, Peter, you were going to go ahead and answer something, please.
No, I mean, it's not about can they do QE4. I mean, they shouldn't, but they have no alternative. And, you know, the Fed has been saying that they're data dependent. The data has been awful all year. The Fed just refuses to acknowledge that. You know, Q3 GDP is going to be lucky if it prints above 1%. It was 5% last year. That's an 80% slowdown. The first half of this year, GDP grew at 1.45%. This economy is rapidly heading towards recession, and this latest drop in the stock market is what's going to push it over the edge. So it is a U.S. recession that is on the horizon, and if this is true, we're finally going to start to see a big increase in layoffs and these job numbers that have been kind of the lone bright spot, unless you look beneath the surface to discover the real cause of the decline in the unemployment rate being the complete exodus, the mass exodus from the labor force of American workers and the number of Americans who are settling for part-time jobs, even though they actually want full-time jobs. Even that's going to turn negative if the Fed doesn't come up with QE.
So, Steve, here I get to you, and this came from MarketWatch. Households just saw 1.8 trillion in wealth vanish. All right, Steve, you know how sometimes you and I just like to talk to the consumer out there, the nickel and dimer, the mom and pop who's out there right now, when they see 1.8 trillion disappearing, and we're looking at it disappearing in a lot of different areas right now. What is there that we can take from today, in your opinion, that can at least salve the wounds a little and keep people from having to run to the ledge?
Well, I think they need to remember that since 2008, people have been crying the sky is falling, while the markets have run up and doubled. So a lot of people made a lot of money. That 1.8 trillion is coming off of enormously built wealth. Now, I'm not totally in disagreement with Peter. I think much of what he says makes sense. But by the same token, there are some counterbalancing measures here. Corporations sit on a great deal of cash that if they put it to work, that in and of itself is a stimulus effect. And technology is increasing productivity at exponential rates.
All right, so let me get back to you then, Peter. What's the next step then?
Well, first of all, productivity has been falling. The first quarter of this year and the fourth quarter of last year, we had big drops in productivity. Corporations have already spent all that cash in record share buybacks. And of course, they bought back all that stock at much higher prices. And that was cash they should have used to invest in plant and equipment, which is the oldest it's been in over 60 years. And whatever cash they have left, they've borrowed. So I think corporate balance sheets are a mess. So are individual balance sheets. Everybody in this country is loaded up with debt, including the federal government. They're the leaders of the debt parade, and the debt has gotten much bigger since 2008. The financial crisis was about having too much debt. Well, now we have more than we did then, because instead of allowing the crisis to work its way through, we kicked the can down the road, and now we're catching up with that can, and we're in much worse shape today than we were back then.
All right, 20 seconds left. Steve, you get the last word. How do you think things will rebound on Tuesday? What do you expect to see?
I think you're going to see opportunistic buying come into the market. I do think you're going to see some more profit taking out clearly, but I think generally people have seen it before and they're going to ride it out. I don't think you'll see the kind of panic in the normal investor in the 401ks and IRAs. I think they're just going to ride the wave. I think Peter's going to be preaching, and I've listened to him for years. I don't disagree with much of what he says, but I do think we need to be careful before we succumb to the sky is falling ideal.
Okay, and once again, we'd like to tell everybody, we started this out by doing it. We'll end it by going, big breath, everybody, okay? Everybody just calm down. Don't anybody reach for the ledge just yet. Stay here. We will bring you a little bit of the calm here instead of a lot of the hyperbole that's going along with this. Because, wow, some of the stuff I've seen today, like I saw one headline that said, everything's falling, the sky is falling, market upheaval. Stop. Everybody calm. We're all good. Steve Beeman, Peter Schiff, I want to thank you, gentlemen, for joining us and bringing a little sanity to this. Now, there is one guy who says that he can save this economy no matter what. He will tell you that every single second of the day. The Donald. Now, if you want to go ahead and be part of the Donald Army, this is not an endorsement of Donald Trump nor of his campaign, but we are giving you a chance to get the Donald Trump cap, Make America Great Again. It's a free offer. Call 1-800-933-8396 or go to newsmax.com/Trump cap. Coming up next, one-on-one with Ted Cruz.